Where there's property, there's theft. Ursula Le Guin. Have you or anyone you know ever been a victim of theft? If so, what happened? How did it make you or the person that you know feel? Take a moment to respond to this question. Today we're going to look at various types of stealing. This lesson directly corresponds with pages 14 and 15 in the textbook. When we are done, you're going to work on the activity on page 15 about a fictitious city called Thievesville, located in the USA. There's a lot of crime there. But before we look at that activity, let's first discuss different forms of stealing. First and foremost, we have larceny. Larceny is the legal word for theft, and it is the taking without permission, without intent to return, of property. There are two different kinds of larceny. The first of which is grand theft, and the second, petit theft. Now, larceny can be a felony or a misdemeanor, and it does depend on the value of the property that is taken or the type of property that has been stolen. Then we have burglary. Burglary is the unlawful entry into any building with the intent to commit a crime. Usually that crime is theft, but it could also include robbery, rape, or murder. Burglary is usually associated with one other felony. Let's take a look, though, a little deeper into the differences between grand and petit theft. Grand theft is the stealing of property worth over a certain dollar amount. The dollar amount does vary from state to state, but it's usually around $500, which just so happens that's the amount here in the state of New Jersey. Grand theft is a felony. One other important distinction about grand theft is that there is a variance in the sentencing for someone who commits grand theft of, say, someone's motorboat versus stealing a cell phone. They're both worth over $500, but there's a big price tag difference in the value of a boat versus a phone. Let's now take a look at petit theft, or petty theft. It's a stealing of property worth less than the grand theft amount. Once again, in New Jersey, it would be under $500. This type of theft is a misdemeanor. Other forms of stealing include robbery. Robbery is different in that it's a crime against the person. It is the forcible stealing or taking of a person's property by violence or by threatening violence. This, of course, is different than armed robbery, because armed robbery means using a dangerous weapon to take something from someone. Next, we have fraud. Fraud is knowingly misrepresenting a fact to get property from another person. So, for instance, if John tells you that a worthless coin is gold, which he knows is false, and sells it to you for $100, John has defrauded you of $100. Fraud comes in multiple forms, such as larceny by trick, false pretenses, forgery, and even writing bad checks. Next, we have embezzlement. Embezzlement is different from fraud in that it is when a person takes property that they have been entrusted with. So, for instance, an employee at McDonald's steals $5 from the register. Even if they have the intent to put the money back, they've still taken the property without permission. Embezzlement differs from regular larceny because the person has obtained possession of the property legally. meaning that it was given to them and then they did something with it that they weren't supposed to. Next, we have extortion. Extortion is when you make a threat with the intent of getting property, usually money, from another person. One form of extortion, of course, is blackmail. Lastly, we have receiving stolen property. This is illegal in every state, and this crime requires that the person knows or should have known that the property that they were provided was stolen. Receiving stolen property does not apply to the thief that took it to begin with. It applies to the person who receives the property after the thief has done the stealing. At this time, go ahead and open your textbooks to page 15 and take a look at Thievesville. Let's see what those scoundrels are up to in that town and see what crimes we can identify.